All right, the first thing that I want to go over is what should be included in each part of the essay. And I'm going to break the parts down into three: the introduction, the body, and the conclusion. Okay? And can we put the food away? Thanks. That's for lunch, not for this class. Okay? Thank you. All right. So, the first thing that I would like to let you know is the first part is the introduction. And you guys can go ahead and fill this on your sheet as well. I know you already have some notes from yesterday. But the introduction should have an interesting opener that makes the reader want to continue reading. All right, it should also provide necessary background information. And then it should also hint at the significance of the experience. All right, the next section, which will be multiple paragraphs, all right, will be the body. And the body is where you're going to develop each of your events. The body, first of all, will be organized into events. Here you'll provide details, all right, regarding the people, places, and your thoughts and feelings. And then you should also use figurative language and precise action verbs in the body. And then the final part would be the conclusion. And in the conclusion, all right, this is where you're going to reflect on the experiences that you develop in the body paragraphs. And you should end with a direct statement of significance of with the direct statement of the significance of the experiences. You can go ahead and sharpen your pencil. Thank you. Okay. And so now as we go through the essay, we're going to identify these things that we just mentioned. Okay. I'll also point out some different uses of figurative language. There's also an example of how the author increases the pacing. All right. I'm going to identify that as well. Okay. And so all of this, like for me, this is a really good example. If you write an essay like this, it would be, a good grade. All right, because you're including all these things. And the way in which the author writes the essay, I think, is sophisticated. And it certainly identifies why this particular experience impacted her life. Okay, so let's take a look at the introduction. My whole way of looking at the world began to change around the time I turned 13. Now here's the interesting opener, which I'm abbreviating I-O. The reason why this is interesting is it does grab the audience's attention because now the audience is asking the question, well, how? How did your whole world change when you were 13? All right, it makes you want to read more to find out. That May, my parents began taking the family to a local YMCA. At the time, although I didn't admit it to myself, I always seemed to live in the shadows of my older brother and sister. However, beginning with those hot summer days at the center, I started to lose track of what my brother and sister were doing because for the first time in my life, I was too busy doing my own thing. Here, we're getting that necessary background information. The author includes the people that were involved, including themselves, all right, and also the place in which the majority of the narrative takes place. Tomorrow, give a pass. All right, so we have the people that are involved. We also have the location, all right, in which the events take place, but we also get the background information about what the conflict was. I like it a lot that we get the internal conflict identified right here in the intro, that she feels like she lives in the shadows of her older brother and sister. Then we get down to the last sentence, and this last sentence hints at why this experience was significant in her life. However, beginning with those hot summer days at the center, I started to lose track of what my brother and sister were doing. So now she's not identifying herself by any other means, except now she's starting to focus on herself. Because for the first time in my life, I was too busy doing my own thing. Now we're moving on into the body, and this is what we'll identify as event number 1. After about a month, I found a Taekwondo class at the YMCA and was mesmerized as I watched the men and women, boys and girls, practice moves and spar with each other. The room was filled with swishing white uniforms and roaring key hop yells. I imagined I was one of these people, timing my strokes perfectly, blocking so gracefully, delivering the winning point at the last moment. In reality, I spent weeks blending into the wall farthest from the class, shadowboxing at home behind locked doors, too afraid to join the others. Well, here, this is our first event, and I like how it sets it up. We got this membership at the YMCA, and then we have after about a month. Here we have a prepositional phrase that identifies the amount of time that has passed. By identifying that, we're allowed to maybe put this in more context, and throughout you'll notice that the other transitions that the author uses between paragraphs also are related to the amount of time that has elapsed. Okay? So here we're also getting we're getting some sensory imagery. So here's some more figurative language. All right, it was filled with swishing white uniforms and roaring key hop yells. And then we get this reflection. All right, she's thinking of, these are her thoughts and feelings. I imagined I was one of these people timing my strokes. So here we go. These are her thoughts. All right, but we also see that the conflict is still established here. In reality, I spent weeks blending into the wall farthest from the class, shadowboxing at home behind locked doors, too afraid to join the others. So we know that the author here is certainly under a lot of duress, and that's kind of the whole point of the essay, is that she's trying to break out of being shy. Here again is our transition, and this sets up event number 2. Then, after weeks of watching, one day it happened. The Sabonin instructor, a college student named Gwen, who moved as if the law of gravity did not apply to her, called to me just as I was about to sneak out the door. "Hey, Wallflower, why don't you come help me practice some blocks?" she asked. I told her that I was not part of the class, but she insisted, saying, "I promise I'll only block your moves. No counter moves until you're ready, and I can teach some other techniques too." Here, she continues to provide her thoughts and feelings. All right, but one thing that we have here that we didn't have before is here is the dialogue that you'll have to use. Now notice how the dialogue is punctuated. The quotation mark begins the quote, okay, and then we have the question mark, all right, which is inside the end quotation mark, okay. We also don't have unnecessary dialogue. A lot of times, I believe students would include their own dialogue. All right, here we really don't need it. Instead, the author chose to paraphrase what she said and then start again on Gwen's dialogue. I think that was a nice effect, and it was a good choice because it doesn't interfere with the pacing of the entire essay. Now, just because we start a new paragraph doesn't mean we have to start a new event, because this is a continuation of event number 2. If Gwen had not been so friendly, I might have tried to escape. Instead, I found myself on the mats, outfitted in all the cushioned protective gear. My knees were mashed potatoes. My heartbeat thundered in my head. My breath came in gasps. There was no escape. I tucked my head safely behind my pads. Now I was barely able to see. I moved haltingly forward, fearful and fascinated. After a few minutes, though, I started to relax and enjoy myself. See, Gwen said afterward, once you've loosened up, you're natural. And that was the right thing to say then, because I needed praise. All right, here we have my knees were mashed potatoes. That's a nice use of a metaphor. So there's your figurative language. And that use of figurative language continues with my heartbeat thundered in my head. My breath came in gasps. Now, one thing you'll note is that we have this simple sentence, then we have another simple sentence, we have another simple sentence. You see the consecutive simple sentences that are being used here? This is a direct attempt and a successful attempt of controlling the pacing of this particular paragraph. Here, her thoughts and feelings are emulated in just the way that she's able to structure the sentences. She's nervous, and so the pace picks up. When you have short, syncopated sentences like that, you can almost feel the nervousness and how it picks up with the pace. All right, so that's a deliberate choice, and I really like that choice. Now here starts event number 3. Again, you'll notice that this author uses time to help her transition between paragraphs. Okay? That night, I convinced my parents to let me enroll in the class. I memorized all the moves. Arimaji, down block, Golji Shaji, hook kick, Pum Soji, tiger stance, and so on. All right, so believe me, this natural never worked so hard in her life. There is no doubt about it. Taekwondo is a tough aerobic workout. Sometimes my muscles felt like limp noodles by the end of the day. My friends thought I was crazy. Here comes Jackie Chan, they would tease. Eventually, I thought I was not just graceful, but good enough. Eventually, actually, that's a typo. It should be eventually, though. I was not just graceful, but good enough to earn a yellow, then an orange, and later a green belt. So here in this paragraph, we continue the use of, all right, muscles felt like limp noodles. Does anybody know what that is an example of? Yes, it's a simile. Yeah, two unlike things compared with like or as. All right, muscles to limp noodles. We also have the use of, what's this again? A quotation. So we have some dialogue, right? And later on, we're going to see internal monologue here, and we also use quotations for that. So yeah, here's some more dialogue. We also get the fact that she spent a lot of time on this. If she got a yellow, an orange, or a green belt, she must have spent some time in the gym. So again, time is elapsing. So this isn't just about one specific time. This is an event that includes a long amount of time, right? So probably 9 months at least. All right, so as you guys are thinking about what you want to write about, know that it can span a certain amount of time, okay? Just like this essay does. So here's event, all right, so that was event 3, and here is event 4. My mother still likes to tell the next part of this story. The following March, I had invited her, Dad, and my brother and sister to the center one Saturday for the spring tournament, not telling them I was competing. While they were looking for me on the bench, they were surprised to hear my name blared over a loudspeaker. Their shock was compounded when they finally noticed their younger daughter poised confidently in the ring, waiting to spar in her first competition match. I can't believe I'm here, I remember thinking. I didn't win, but I did get my picture in the newspaper, a close-up of my determined face, and have the reward of my parents' amazed and proud faces. Here, I really like the diction or the word choice that is being used here to show that she has changed from a very shy, meek individual to somebody who believes in herself and who is confident. Look at some of the words that are used here, okay? Her name was blared over the speaker. The shock was when they finally noticed that it was poised confidently in the ring, okay? I remember thinking, I didn't win, but I didn't get my determined face. All right, so we're starting to see through just her word choice, All right, so here the word choice alone shows that she is changing, or that this was a significant impact on her life. And now here comes the conclusion. So remember then the conclusion, she needs to reflect on her experience, and then she needs to end with a direct statement of the significance of the experience. Looking back, I realize now that my parents did not need proof that I was worth something I did. I needed an accomplishment all my own, and Taekwondo was it. I learned confidence and greater respect for myself, not from winning, but from trying. From then on, I felt like a real person, not just a shadow. So here we see the reflection. She says, looking back. It's a great transition. It's a phrase that some of you may want to utilize in your own writing, okay, to help you, or something very similar to that, okay? But we know that she is attempting to think about what had happened to her in the past. All right, here she realizes, all right, it wasn't about her parents, this was about her own journey into finding her own confidence. And another effect that I really like is from then on, I felt like a real person, not just a shadow. This here is a reference back to the introduction, isn't it? Where she said that she was in the shadows of my older brother and sister. I just like that as an effect. You know, anytime that you can connect your introduction and your conclusion in that way, you know, it really gives you a nice sense of finality, which I like. Okay? So,